Here at Plus CBD Oil, it's essential to make different products.
That's why we've created 3 different formulas to fit your personal wellness regimen. We start with our raw formula. This formula is a full-spectrum, whole-plant CO2 extract from agricultural hemp. The most prominent compound in our raw formula is CBDA, a naturally occurring cannabinoid produced in hemp. CBDA is CBD in its acid form, with its own unique properties. For example, it does not cross the blood-brain barrier, meaning it exerts most of its benefits in the body, making it a true hemp superfood. The next step is our total plant complex, where our raw formula undergoes a gentle heating process that converts CBDA into activated CBD. Now that CBD has been activated, it has the ability to affect all organ systems. Aside from CBD, our total plant complex is rich in many other phytocannabinoids and phytonutrients, such as fatty acids, terpenes, plant sterols, chlorophyll, and naturally occurring vitamin E. We then distill our total plant complex in a chemical-free process to make our signature gold formula. This removes the plant material while concentrating the other phytonutrients, making it the most potent, fastest-acting, and effective formula we offer. If you're looking for high-intensity support or just want more CBD, our Gold Formula products may be right for you. Because everyone utilizes phytocannabinoids differently, each experience will be personal and unique. Empower yourself and see which color, red, green, or gold, works best for you. Learn more about what our 3 different formulas can do for you at pluscbdoil.com.
Please have your attention, and I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
The Robert Scott Bell Show.
A lot of people have said there are people now dying of the swine flu who are in good health. By whose standards? Hospitals serve Jell-O.
Robert Scott Bell.
Food advertising. You know the people. Fresh, natural, hearty, old-fashioned, homemade goodness in a can.
Robert Scott Bell.
Dr. Agus argues that the fountain of youth is attainable if everyone were to take statin drugs.
Excuse me? It sounds completely insane.
Taking on bureaucrats and corporations that would stand in the way of health freedom and making sense out of medical propaganda. The voice of health, freedom, and liberty, Robert Scott Bell.
Kicking off our broadcast week here in style. We got Michael Boldin coming up in hour 2. I'm just going to tell you, 10th Amendment Center, the power to say no. Learn from your 2-year-old nullification. We're going to get into a great conversation about what's going on with the living in freedom in the era of Corona. Is it possible? We'll get to that. But first up, coming up in just a moment, John Rappoport, our good buddy from No More Fake News. We're going to talk about the things that are not discussed anywhere else in broadcast media, unless John Rappoport happens to be there, and he is here today. Briefly, update. Those of you who are longtime listeners to Robert Scott Bell Show, you already know this, but for new listeners, I want to let you know we have a Patreon support now. You can sign up, become a patron of the Robert Scott Bell Show, and tomorrow, 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock Pacific, we're going to do an Ask Me Anything, an AMA. I've never done one of those before for our patrons and also for our patron supporters. Super Don, my lovable and humble producer, has a stash, the Super Don stash of organic essential oils, $400 worth, that he's donating for the cause because he's so grateful for all of you patrons out there supporting us directly, that they're going to be given away to one fortunate Patreon supporter this month, March 2020. So sign up quickly. You can find that link at robertscottbell.com. Also, we're going to be doing some other giveaways if you're getting our email blast at robertscottbell.com. And let's see, anything else? Oh, yeah, Silver Right pillows. The silver coating around the pillow, you will not be suffering from mold and fungus and all the garbage that ends up living on your pillow. It's not a foam insert and anything. That's new. You've got a discount code RSB20. And our friends at CV Sciences, in response to all the anxiety and fear out there, They've doubled down on the discount code for Robert Scott Bell Show listeners, RSB30. If you want CBD from hemp, you can get it with a 30% discount code with RSB30. Now, that's out of the way, the good stuff, if that wasn't good enough. John Rappoport is back on the Robert Scott Bell Show. He's been continually writing on the issue we are discussing pretty much every day because we have to, about health, healing, natural medicine, government centralization, bureaucrats, the takedown of freedom, the takedown of America via coronavirus, or maybe just the fear of one that hasn't been isolated and that there's no test for. John Rappoport, have you found the test that definitively says yay or nay, and how much?
No.
Oh, man.
No. And no. And no. I have not. I would like to, I suppose, find that test. I would definitely like to find a test that says it one way or another, but the powers that be won't do it. I've described this on two levels. One is we're talking the diagnostic test in a patient to say this is a case of the coronavirus, and then going back even deeper and further in the, quote, discovery of a new virus in the first place that was causing illness, supposedly. Where is that convincing test that was ever done? Again, nowhere, not done. And so that's where we stand.
John, I asked this question, last week. China says, because I heard from the CDC. CDC says, well, the Chinese gave us the genetic sequence to this unique novel COVID-19. And I'm like, and you just believe them? And you just said, sure, okay, let's run with that, and we'll develop a test that we, based on that sequence, and whether that test is good or not, that's secondary. And I'm like, no, don't you demand some independent validation verification? Hey, send us the samples that you claim that you've basically sequenced so that we can test it and we can send it to other labs so that they can test it. And let's find out what the real deal is. I don't know that any of them have done that.
I certainly don't see it. There's a team, I think, up in Toronto that claims now that they, this was kind of interesting because it was, I think, today or yesterday, claims that they've isolated the virus, the coronavirus. So this is now the 13th of March. Now they're saying
15th as we're airing.
I'm not saying I believe them, but I mean this. They're announcing as if nobody's done it before. I mean,
the whole
and here
world.
we are in the middle of this monstrous lockdown of anything that moves, and this is the first time they're claiming they've actually isolated. I mean, it's completely ludicrous.
Yeah, wasn't this supposed to be done first before the entire world panicked based on one new novel weaponized bat virus?
Yeah, that's the first thing you're supposed to do, right? Mm-hmm. So everybody picks up on the supposed genetic sequence, underline the word supposed, and then they all take off from that with various arguments and counter-arguments. Look what we found. There's a break in the sequence. So that means it had to be engineered. Somebody else says, look, there's sequences from HIV in there. This shows some very strange goings-on. We don't even know what that means, blah, blah, blah. But it all begins when you accept what somebody else says is A, a new virus, and B, that they have the genetic sequence, and here it is. It's like somebody leaves a package at your door, and you go get it. And inside, I don't know, there's something. Does it work? What is it? Who cares? You're supposed to just accept it? No, not at all.
I'm going to go back to origin point again. I think we got to start there, and it matters. I know it doesn't matter because the panic is on, the quarantines are on, the national emergencies have been declared. But somebody, please, in the scientific medical community or in government, please stand up and say, where's the original isolation? Where are the tests that identify not only the definitive presence of, but copious amounts replicating actively in the blood of the victim? You had a great article last week talking about, if there was real science being conducted, they could design an experiment. And I think, let me paraphrase it. Basically, you take the samples that are claimed to be coronavirus positive or whatever, and you send them to an independent lab, maybe even the CDC, blinded and just numbers, and then they would determine based on their testing, here's the ones that are definitely positive and have the worst, the most quantitatively speaking in the blood, and then you unblind it by going back to those originals and say, let's look at those people. Are they alive? Are they dead? Are they out playing golf? Are they running races? Are they suffering in bed? Are they in ICU? And then you find out, my gosh, the tests, they either work or they don't. They don't match up. And I thought, brilliant. How is that not happening?
How is that not happening? Exactly. That would be the test. And the reason that I started thinking about what the right kind of test would be and should be was because there's been this kind of debate going back and forth for a very long time between the orthodoxy, the medical and scientific orthodoxy, and a few outliers like me about this test, diagnostic test called the PCR, and whether it can actually quantify, as you just described, how much virus is in a person, replicating and so forth, and you would need a great deal of it to even begin talking about the virus making that person sick. So instead of getting into that argument using impenetrable technical terms that have to do with the CDR that come across to most people as total gobbledygook, I said, can't we simplify this? Let's get down to the human being and life as it actually exists outside the lab. So how about a test that either comes up and shows that these guys know what they're talking about, and when they say, yeah, the test shows that these people, number 1, 65, and 87, and 32, and so forth, will be very sick. Let's go to those people now, unblind the whole thing, and let's see. Like you say, are they playing golf? Are they running marathons? Are they in the ICU? Let's really see. Well, that's never been done. It's never been done on a test basis with sufficient numbers of people, which would be at least in the hundreds, if not thousands, to verify that this test actually works.
And then we go back to transmission electron microscope photography, transmission micrographs, they call them. And they talk about viral isolation and some evidence of proof. That goes to the, hey, we've isolated in the blood. We've now put it in a TEM to analyze and isolate and find, and we have a photograph. And then that is then those samples sent out to other labs that have TEM analysis and pull out, isolate, purify, whatever the blood, and find these viral proteins and say, aha, this is it, and it's done again. And that hasn't happened either. And, of course, that's problematic, too, because going back since the era of insane immunology turned on its head, HIV, there's arguments that are very strong that it's never been done appropriately for HIV either. So we have, again, a pattern or a history repeating itself with this coronavirus claim. Again, acknowledging that, yes, some people are sick, some people are dying, respiratory illness. There's nothing unique or novel about the manifestations or symptoms that are playing themselves out, nor the deaths that occur in nursing homes with old people that are on multiple medications and have immunosuppression or a history of pulmonary lung problems. So, we're asking for a basic, I don't know if this is a high bar, John, but a basic bar of some kind of standard that says, you achieve this, then you've actually, achieved a validation, which we keep pointing out hasn't been done.
Exactly. The electron microscope work is key here, because that's where you discover or not that you have found a new virus that is supposedly harming people. That's right at the beginning. That's where you would either say, wow, look at what we found, or we didn't find anything. It's a dud. Let's go back to the drawing board and see, oh, yeah, these people they have pneumonia. Oh, look, the air is horrible and polluted and deadly. Oh, yeah, well, maybe we should think about that. This is where, at the very beginning, and common sense tells you that you would want to do this procedure that ends up with electron microscope photos on hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of people that are supposed to have this, quote, new virus, in order to say that you've actually discovered something new. Well, they don't do that. They've never done it, as far as I know, on any virus. I can't find it.
There's a lot of problems with what they haven't done. We're going to continue discussing the undiscussable with John Rappoport and No More Fake News right here on the Robert Scott Bell Show. RobertScottBell.com after this.
Check out a sweet offer that my friends at Better Way Health give. This is an immune-boosting supplement that you can't get anywhere else.
Beta-glucan activates and enhances your immune response to invaders.
These things are brilliant for modulating the immune system.
Someone has a need for help in supporting their immune system, I'm looking at the glucan product.
It's amazing, and there's been an enormous amount of research done on this.
It's the most studied immunomodulator on Earth, with over 14,000 published studies referencing beta-glucan, and it's currently being tested in roughly 100 clinical trials.
If you like your dietary supplements with validated science, there's nothing that has more behind it than the beta-1 3D glucan from Better Way Health.
Probably the most heavily researched substances that I'm aware of that modulates the immune system.
It rebuilds your immune system.
Consistency and quality are everything.
Here, you want to see my supplement drawer? Here it is. Get ready.
I was putting together my research and I tripped on this supplement called beta-glucan.
There it is. It's very small. I take beta-glucans, immune booster.
You don't have to worry that you're overstimulating the immune system. We have been just amazed.
I take like 2 a day from Better Way Health.
It's been tested against about 36 other immune-boosting products and found to be superior.
If you have an immune system or you want one, beta-1 3D glucan, that transfer point is very unique. It's going to get the results that you're looking for. I support it and I use it.
Better Way Health, I got to tell you, you can spend more time, you can spend more money, but you cannot give better service than you're going to get from those guys down there. They are truly 24 karat.
The brand you want to get is called Transfer Point Beta-1 3D Glucan, and you can get it from BetterWayHealth.com. Let's spread the message about beta-glucans. It's a powerful substance from nature that can help you.
In the health world through the power of radio. It's the Robert Scott Bell Show.
I always love getting together with John Rappoport because the logic, the rationality, the questioning, the engaging of the mind with its purpose, right? Not to rule and run you, but to use it as a tool that it is, and we're using it today. John, you have an article just came out a couple of days ago, and it is about the overflowing ICUs in Italy, and this goes into the heart of, well, people are dying, right? And you and I, we don't dispute that people are dying or not dying. That's not the discussion issue, yet you point that out because people point that out to you all the time and say, but John, what about, right? And we talk about this.
All the time. They say, look, I read your articles and it's very interesting, but people are dying, so it must be the virus. Wow. You know, I'm driving a car, so it must be a Cadillac. No, it doesn't have to be. So this is now a pretext for many people to say, well, look, here in Italy, the ICU wards in hospitals in the northern part of Italy are overflowing with people. So this must mean it's the coronavirus. Well, wait a minute, what? So I wrote an article where I took that whole thing apart to show you, and I'll try to boil it down. These days in Italy, you would find that people would be diagnosed with the coronavirus in 2 ways. One is basically calling them presumptive cases, meaning no tests have actually been done. They come in with certain symptoms like flu-type symptoms, lung-type symptoms, pneumonia, whatever, and they're just said to be coronavirus cases. No evidence, and of course, You've got foul air up in northern Italy, industrially, and all sorts of other things. And people get flu-like symptoms all the time. And some people are more sick from it than others. And older people that already have weak immune systems and other serious health problems can get extremely sick and die from lung problems and so forth. But now they're called coronavirus cases, presumptive cases. Or, in a few instances, tests are done to confirm this, and I've covered, and Robert and I have covered in previous conversations, why the tests are completely inadequate for diagnosing coronavirus. But nevertheless, these people come into the hospitals. They've always come into the hospitals with these kinds of symptoms, and more of them are coming in now because of the scare of the coronavirus. So, two things. I watched a video interview with an Italian public health official, and from what I could gather from what he said, the new burden of cases in ICUs in northern Italy is maybe several thousand more than they ordinarily see. That's the burden in a country of 60 million people. That's the first thing. The second thing is, when these people come into the hospitals and are called presumptive cases of coronavirus, what do the doctors have to do that they didn't do before? Before, they could send them to the general wards in the hospital, or they could give them drugs and send them home. But now, because they've said you're coronavirus, they have to put them in the ICU because they believe that these patients could now be contagious, and they can't, we could infect other people. So we have to isolate them in ICU. And that's why the ICUs are overflowing. It has nothing to do with anything besides that. And yet people fall for this, like watching a guy on a corner with a little table doing a shell game, and they always guess the wrong shell. Time after time after time after time.
What do they call that form of logic? Is it tautological? What's the reference point when you're kind of using an end thing to describe this is explaining the thing that was never explained?
What I call it is, it's sort of circular reasoning. That's what is called sometimes, or the effect proves the cause,
right,
which is completely fallacious, and Aristotle figured this out about 2,300 years ago.
And we never find out in this sequence of events in Italy, like you point out, the people who could have been sent home in a normal year with respiratory ailments, just like, no, here, take this, go home, and now they're automatically isolated based on a presumption, right? Presumed positive, presumptive positive, and we're dealing with that in the United States of America. Of the 1,000, the 2,000, 3,000, they have, there's always an asterisk. If they're honest about the reporting, presumptive positives are included in this big number. And we got to talk about that, as well as the belief system, the fear, the emotions, also creating symptoms in the presence or absence of any microbe. That is real. We'll talk about it with John Rappoport when we come back. Go to robertscottbell.com. We'll link you up to nomorefakenews.com as well.
You're listening to the Robert Scott Bell Show.
Today, we live in an omnipresent cloud of charged particles emitted by electronic devices, electromagnetic fields, WLAN, and radio waves. These particles penetrate our bodies and heat the water in our body tissues. Recent scientific studies have shown that this particle flux not only heats the cells in our bodies as if we were in a microwave oven, but damages them as well. At Key Technologies, we want to protect you from the negative effects of such particles, so we have developed the Key Home Cell and other products. The Key Home Cell creates a protective field that works like a filter, intercepting any dangerous particles before they can enter your body. Here we have a partial look at the inner workings of the Key Home Cell. The Key Home Cell generates a charge exchange between the water tubes, thereby discharging free electrons and releasing them into the room. Within 24 hours, the Key Home Cell creates a torus field. The free electrons formed in the torus use their negative charge to bind to the positively charged harmful particles, thereby rendering them harmless to you. The torus field has an effective range of 16.4 feet above and below, and 24.6 feet around the device. The torus field created by the Key Home Cell is transmitted and provides you with protection through the walls of your home. Not only humans and animals are shielded from harmful radiation, but plants and food too. Whether mobile radio waves or WLAN, any particles that come within the torus field can no longer cause any harm to you or your family. The Key Home Cell provides you with all-around protection, allowing you to communicate with absolute peace of mind when using your cell phone or any other electronic devices. The Key Home Cell's free electrons are transmitted into the water through the torus field and repairing the water structure that was destroyed by radiation particles. Water regains its ideal vibrating hexagonal grid structure. The difference is easy to taste and can be proven with laboratory testing. This type of perfect hexagonal water structure is found in fresh spring and healing water and has also been seen in snowflakes. The same effect happens with our food, which also contains water. The Key Home Cell greatly reduces radiation exposure from cell phones, laptops, WLAN transmitters, mobile terminals, and other sources of radiation. The Key Home Cell drastically reduces the thermal stress on your body tissue. It is very fast and very easy. With the Key Home Cell, you will experience a new quality of well-being within your home and more life energy without any unhealthy exposure to radiation.
On bureaucrats and corporations that would stand in the way of health freedom. Here's Robert.
Coming up on the Robert Scott Bell Show in Hour 2, we're going to talk with Michael Boldin from the 10th Amendment Center. But right now, we got a lot more to discuss with our good friend John Rappoport from No More Fake News. I wanted to talk about the emotional aspect of what happens here. When one sees somebody cough, normally you say, oh, they have a cough, and you don't think much of it. Today, when you see somebody cough, you immediately think, oh my gosh, deadly viral pandemic. And how our belief system, how our emotional response to these things can manifest as disease or symptom in our own bodies that become, I don't know, the term used to be called psychosomatic, but you really are coughing. You may even really have a fever, but we have that power, the power of the mind, the power of the emotions to literally manifest symptoms in our body, do we not?
Absolutely. I mean, let's just take a case of somebody walking down the street in the city where they've sprayed disinfectant, okay? Because they think that this virus is just, walking around, running around, sneaking here and there, and so they got to spray some toxic chemical down. So this guy walks down the street, and by the time he gets on the subway, he's coughing. Okay, now he sees people looking at him on the subway. Now he feels some degree of fear and some shame, and what are they thinking, and what does this mean, and so on and so forth. And that leads him to the next step, which is, well, maybe I've got something here. Now, in former times, he would just, shrug it off. He might even realize, hey, there's a strange smell on the street, must be disinfectant, that's why I'm good. But not now. So now he begins to build up in his mind the idea that this cough that he has might be the symptom and the sign of something worse. Might be. And now he begins to entertain, as people do in their minds, fantasies and thoughts and ideas, including, of course, and mainly centered on coronavirus and all that implies, pandemic and isolation, and what am I going to do, and what about my family, and who do I shake hands with, and do I say anything to people, and if I don't, I might be transmitting. All these things come into play, and now he's sneezing and coughing, and his nose is stuffed, and by the afternoon at work, he feels kind of warm, and maybe he does have 99.7. If you start a temperature gauge against his forehead or in his mouth or whatever. And so, it builds and builds and builds and builds and builds. And this is what happens to a great many people. And so this guy, by the end of the day, it's possible, completely healthy, is so freaked out that he walks into an emergency ward at a hospital. where they might be all too happy to call him a presumptive case of coronavirus. You never know. Depends on who the nurse is, who the doctor is. It could go either way. Doctor, a smart, savvy doctor who's been around the block 50,000 times might look at this guy, size him up, and say, you know what, I think we're, because they don't have any tests at that hospital anyway, I think you should go home, get a good night's sleep, see how you feel in the morning. If you're really worse, you come back. Otherwise, forget about it. That could happen. Or some other doctor might say, okay, we think what we might have here is a presumptive case, and we better, we could send you home to self-isolate, but, your temperature's now up to 101.8. I think we better put you in the ICU. Boom.
And
all kinds of things start to happen.
Yeah, and all of these
including
beliefs feed on other beliefs based on the fear, and you begin to see a pattern of control and manipulation, whether it was intentional or not. Ultimately, somebody sees this, John, and says, we can use this, right? Whether it be within the United States, people to say, never let a crisis go to waste, right? A good crisis go to waste. What about enemies of freedom, enemies of America? Countries that want to take us out, take us down a notch and reduce us from the superpower status or whatever, and begin to go where we go, and they can't go. Could this, and there's a deep question, but when we ask who benefits by the fear of coronavirus and quarantines and lockdowns and shutdowns in America, could it be argued that this is a form of warfare? Yes, economic, but a warfare against freedom.
Okay, let me read you just a brief paragraph from a piece that I'm working on now. This is kind of a preview. And the headline would be, what the Chinese regime did versus what they could have done. Okay? So the Chinese government could have said, quote, at the very beginning, yes, we have a little outbreak in Wuhan, nothing serious, nothing unusual. We have people coming to hospital with pneumonia. About 300,000 people die of pneumonia every year in China for all sorts of reasons. In Wuhan, the elderly sometimes have a problem with the air quality. We've been working very hard to fix that. If you look at the World Health Organization reports, our efforts are paying off. At one point, we were going to build an incinerator for burning waste in Wuhan, but we discovered the older technology would have created pollution, so we abandoned the idea. We want to come up with a better facility, and we will. We're sensitive to the needs of our people. And that would have been that. They could have done that, but they didn't. They decided to, quote, go along with the virus hounds from the CDC and the World Health Organization and claim a new coronavirus that had never infected humans before was on the loose. And then, and this was the key, all of a sudden, right near the beginning, they suddenly locked down 3 huge cities and quarantined 50 million people overnight. Bang. Now the CDC and WHO, World Health Organization, were drooling with anticipation. Now they had their pretext, their rationale for saying this is a big one. This is not just the discovery of a new virus that infected people in Wuhan. Look at what the Chinese had to do to contain this. This is going to be very, very widespread, ominous world epidemic, pandemic, blah, 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 blah. I'm forwarding this, believe me, I know, as a hypothesis, okay, to consider. There's a lot more to look at here. But nevertheless, I bring it up. The Chinese sit back at this point and they say, well, what do you know? Let's watch and see what happens here, knowing how this is going to unfold. And 3 months later, by magic, look at what's happening. Massive lockdown, but where is this now? In the U.S. Anything that moves is being shut down. In other countries, too. Wow, how did that happen? Think about it.
This brings to light the question of global war on a different scale. And I think of Sun Tzu and the Art of War. And how do you defeat an enemy without firing a shot? You know, we've argued firing the shots, maybe the vaccines. You destroy generations of young people in a country, like we've seen with the vaccination program resulting in autism spectrum diseases, 54% of young people chronically ill. Who can even go into the Army if you wanted to, if you needed to, right? And you're not functional to do so. That's one way. And we've talked about the carnage of the medical industrial complex. And you coined the phrase the Church of Biological Mysticism, and I kind of modified it, talk pharmaceutical mysticism as well. And we begin to see that the real purveyors of death are those that are coming in to claim to be the saviors when you are ill and have ailments. And in this case, no difference. Whether the coronavirus, COVID-19, is real and isolated or imagined and conjured into existence becomes secondary to the fact that in either case, the response is allopathic, is pharmaceutical. And if we go back into previous so-called pandemics, go back to 19, Spanish flu, they call it. I dispute the claims that they've isolated one virus, and they said that's what caused it because we dug up a dead guy in Alaska 30 years later before we even knew what viruses were. Then we found that and said that caused it. I mean, people, do you believe that? That's a lie, man. That's a great story. But if we look at the end result is that Big Pharma is the only allowable treater of this so-called disease. Real imagined, it's still real. I mean, as we talked about, the emotional manifestation. And then you see quarantines happening that we reported on in China, millions of people, and that there are people in America salivating to have that kind of power. If we could only do that here, and they're doing it here, but to whose benefit and to whose detriment? Even if we are to, let's say, stop the flow of a virus, if it's happening, what have we done by losing our liberty to allow government to grow and centralize responses like this? This is the antithesis of everything the origin of America stood for.
Yes. Yes, and 1,000 times yes. That's exactly what people should be thinking about, and thinking about very seriously. Because you can trigger exactly what you've just been describing if you give people who want to exert that kind of centralized control a reason to do it. The kind of reason that can't be refuted, because decades and decades and a century of propaganda on the medical front is so huge that it would be futile for, say, a president to suddenly go on the air and say, listen, this is fake news, folks. I'm sorry to have to tell you this, but I'm surrounded by enemies here. And they are, in fact, medical enemies. And, it may seem ridiculous for me to, this is impossible to do. You can't do this, because what would fall upon your head at that point just would be irresistible. I mean, there would be nothing. You're boxed in. And if you look at Trump's recent press conferences, and I never watched presidential press conferences because they're just too horrendous, but you can look at the man and you can see what he has been reduced to, at least for the moment, by the medical forces around him. He is rotely reading from a teleprompter or script in front of him.
Very un-Trump-like.
And then once in a while he says, but we'll beat this, and then he goes back to reading again, and he looks dismal, tired. Whatever you think of him, like him, hate him, whatever it is, this is not someone who is behaving in character. This is someone who is boxed in.
Right.
This is someone in the middle of a squeeze play.
Yeah, let's talk about that squeeze play to wrap up the hour. We got to take a quick break here. John Rappoport, No More Fake News. Man, what a show. We'll be right back.
The Robert Scott Bell Show.
You can't protect your kids from everything. That includes germs, like a virus or a bacteria.
No. Don't touch.
Hi, Mrs. Jones. Can Tommy come out to play?
No.
No matter how hard you try, you just can't be there every minute of the day.
Look what I found.
Where did you get that?
I found it in the street.
There's a better way. Help your child build a strong immune system with Beta Kids. No, it's not a vitamin. Vitamins build strong bones and tissues, but do little for the immune system. One delicious Beta Kids gummy daily wakes up the immune system, alerting your child's defenses to perform more, better, and faster. Studies have shown kids who take Beta Kids miss fewer school days due to illness. Beta Kids is made with beta-glucan, an all-natural ingredient. It's safe, healthy, and proven. You can't protect your kids from everything, but you can help them protect themselves with Beta Kids.
You know, he's really kind of,
disgusting.
yeah.
Good thing we give him Beta Kids.
Information is so good, it requires no expiration date. The Robert Scott Bell Show.
John Rappoport, you were talking about a squeeze play, watching Trump's behavior. You know, he comes into the presidency, love him or hate him, like I said, we talk about, and we've been talking about it since he became president. Wow, this is different. We never see a president go off script, right? Go off teleprompter. And that's Trump, right? That's who he is. And now suddenly he's reading scripts with only an occasional, but we'll get through this. You pointed it out beautifully, which tells you someone's got him. Someone's got to him. And of course, it's the pharmaceutical church.
Indeed. And you can see it writ large when you watch the press conferences. It's like as if he's looking at people and saying, and shrugging and saying, what else do you think what else do you want me to say? There's nothing else I can say, I mean, here we are. I'm in a squeeze play here. So for the time being, at least, I have to go along with this. There's no way to buck it. And that's what's going on. So people have to understand the power that the virus as a cover story has, as a psychological tool. Forget the biology. We're talking about the way to tell a story over a long period of time so that people believe it. I'm watching on sports channels the dominoes fall one after another because, for example, in a major professional golf tournament in Florida that started yesterday, they first decided they were going to play the rest of the tournament without a crowd. Just empty golf course, and the golfers would be doing it. But then they just shut the whole thing down. This morning, I guess it was. No more tournament. Right in the middle of it, boom. And so the head of the PGA, Professional Golfers Association, was asked why he changed his mind. And he said, well, this reason, that reason. And he said, when Disney World and Universal shut down completely, that was the capper. And I felt we just had to do it. So it's like, well, they did it, so we have to do it. Basketball did it, so baseball has to do it. So tennis has to do it. So golf, the dominoes fall one after another. We can't have a gathering of more than 150 people at one time. What? Did you ever read the Constitution? Freedom of assembly? Yeah, but I mean, we're serious stuff here. We have to stop that from happening. Can't do it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Once again, emergency declaration or undeclared, just freak out, whatever, creates a scenario where people are willing to accept things they would never normally accept. And that's the concept of panic. And, as I've drawn this analogy so many times, like our founding fathers, I wrote this great document after the Declaration of Independence, Constitution. They said, this is the thing. This is what we want you to do. These are limitations on government. unless there's an emergency. Then ignore everything we wrote. Matters not. And I bring it back to biblical Old Testament level stuff, and I say, God gave these tablets to Moses. He comes down from Mount Ararat, whatever, and 10 commandments are here. And then he forgot to point to the little asterisk at the end. Follow these commandments, unless it's an emergency. Then all bets are off, right? And it's like, no, that's when you need to cling to principle because it'll get you through the crisis more than ever. But that's not the way it's played because they know they can manipulate us through fear to abandon principle. And then when we are manipulatable, we are programmable. We are as dumb as, any animal we might say is dumb when we just are operating in fight or flight.
Well said, Robert. Very well said. That's the key, see. This is a nation of what? Strong, free, independent, clear-thinking individuals? That's a problem. That's a big problem. We got to do something about that. We have to give people the sense of a herd instinct and the responsibility and the duty to follow orders when there is a, quote, emergency in order not only to protect themselves but others around them. And what would be the way we could do that? See, and then there's all kinds of answers to that. And the modern answer to that, which is a mighty answer, is the virus, the contagious infectious virus, you see.
And if you're
in a sense, the emergency is even worse than 9/11 because, Americans were told to go out shopping after that happened, right?
Yeah, now it's
but now nobody's shopping.
Or everybody shop for everything, and now we hope that more boats come from China to bring us that cheap stuff that may never arrive. And again,
that was ordered online.
Right. And China is hurt by a slowdown in the economy. I acknowledge it, but it hurts America too. And I think to weaken America, that would be a goal for the Chinese. That would be a goal for Putin and the Russians. We got to leave it there, but great discussion. We'll pick it up as soon as you're available next time, John. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you, Robert. It's great.
All right. We got more to discuss with Michael Boldin of the 10th Amendment Center here. After this, the power to heal is yours.
The Robert Scott Bell Show.
Living Fuel. Grade your meal today. Imagine if you had a single meal which contained more protein than a half dozen organic egg whites, more fiber than 2 bowls of steel-cut organic oatmeal, more vitamin D than 10 fillets of Arctic fish, more vitamin B12 than 50 servings of raw organic cheese, more vitamin E than 1 pound of raw organic almonds, more calcium than 2 glasses of whole organic milk, more potassium than 2 organic bananas, more phytonutrients than 10 fresh organic green salads, more antioxidants than 10 bowls of fresh vine-ripe organic berries, more omega-3 than 2 cups of organic edamame, more resveratrol than 4 glasses of wine, more probiotics than 6 cups of yogurt, more enzymes than 3 whole organic papayas, more vitamin C than 7 oranges. That would cost $268.13 per meal and equal to 14,124 calories. Imagine all that nutrition in a single super meal you can afford. Now, you don't have to imagine anymore. Living Fuel, the super meal you can drink. Upgrade your meal today.
Attention, and I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
The Robert Scott Bell Show.
A lot of people have said there are people now dying of the swine flu who are in good health. By whose standards? Hospitals serve Jell-O.
Robert Scott Bell.
Food advertising. You know the people. Fresh, natural, hearty, old-fashioned, homemade goodness in a can.
Robert Scott Bell.
Dr. Agus argues that the fountain of youth is attainable if everyone were to take statin drugs.
Excuse me? It sounds completely insane.
Taking on bureaucrats and corporations that would stand in the way of health freedom and making sense out of medical propaganda. the voice of health, freedom, and liberty, Robert Scott Bell.
All right, this hour of the Robert Scott Bell Show brought to you by my friends at the 10th Amendment Center. Learn the power of no. Michael Boldin is back with us here on the Robert Scott Bell Show, and we've got links in the show notes at robertscottbell.com. And Michael Boldin, with all his expertise in the 10th Amendment, I'm going to ask him anything about it. I really want to know to start, Michael, about your experiences on the ground in L.A. I've walked the streets of L.A., the Arts District, with you before. We've gotten vegan ice cream together and all kinds of fun stuff, even organic donuts. But since I've left you, L.A. has gone where under the life or freedom in the era of Corona?
Oh, man, it's literally, I feel like I'm living in a zombie movie to some. I mean, it's not totally empty streets here. Mind you, so I live in the Arts District of downtown Los Angeles. I work from home. This is a very dense area where there's lots of traffic. The street, like out my window, is a thoroughfare to catch two different freeways for people commuting. And usually there's a huge backup, but there's parking. So for me, I can look outside, and if there's no backup of cars and there's available parking, and then you go for a walk and no one's in the little cafes or shops and things are closed, it really feels, it either feels like it's a Christmas holiday or something really weird is going on. So it definitely has been strange, but in a weird way, I kind of like the fact that if people are freaked out, they're kind of just staying away from me, because then I don't have to worry about them. Because as you've been talking about on the show for the last week or so, it's almost like the concern is really not about those of us who are working to try to improve our immunity. I used that article that you put out, and I finally picked up some beta-glucan, because everything else I've been doing, the silver and the selenium, and although maybe not GTF chromium, I may have run out of that. But so I've been doing these things to try to take care of myself. I'm trying to eat well, get lots of fiber, just basically take care of myself. So if I catch something, whatever it may be, I'm just going to fight it off a little bit faster naturally. But I don't trust the people who are literally like, oh, my God, things are going nuts. I got to go get a 2-liter of Diet Coke. Wow. I mean, the mentality of the people is just nuts. My brother, who just got into town, he just literally just got here from to a new apartment from the Midwest earlier this past week, middle of the week, like Wednesday or something like that. And he took a picture. He went to a Whole Foods market in the middle of downtown LA, and literally the shelves were totally empty. I went to that store before it opened a few years ago, and the shelves were not totally empty even before they were open for business.
Wow.
So it's just, people are just, I think they're very panicky, and it's creepy. It really is creepy to me. And I mean, I feel like in Southern California, we're kind of in a hot spot for creepiness in general anyways. So it's just kind of interesting to see how this plays out. I have tons of food to make it through probably a month and a half, because this is just kind of what I do anyways.
Right.
So I've got lots of rice and beans and frozen food, and I've got some Garden of Life protein powder, stuff that I could live on for quite a while, no problem. So I'm not worried about running to the store to pick up toilet paper and diet soda and things like that. But it seems like everybody else is doing that. And that tells me that the education system in this country is a mess, because everyone is just running around with their heads cut off.
Wow. Yeah, I just talked with, on Friday's show, Morley Robbins, and you know, he's an elder statesman in many ways nutritionally now, and I talk about the lack of let's say care for our own bodies. You know, you talk about people making a run on Diet Coke, like when I think of my younger years, Michael Boldin. You know, when I was a Gen X kid growing up on what fast food that was starting to really be big, and you know, Coca-Cola. I didn't do the diet stuff, but all the things that I did. And I remember having an addiction to Coca-Cola. Honestly, that it was like, this is what you drink. Water? Who drinks water? And somewhere along the lines, we were marketed to believe that this is somehow a good thing to do. And when I stopped or tried to stop, I literally had cravings. I could taste the Coca-Cola in my mouth for a couple of years after I quit. If I smelled it, it was like people talk about cravings for cigarettes. I had those cravings for soda.
I do too, and mind you, I was never a soda person as a kid. We were only we ate a lot of junk food, lots of like fried bad donuts, and there's a lot of garbage.
Stuff we
But
get
for
together
whatever
and we eat even today, but organic vegan versions.
Yeah. But like with all the chemicals and whatever garbage they're putting in there as well. So I definitely had a really bad sugar addiction. And I never really drank a lot of soda. And just as a quick aside, I remember I went to a movie theater with a really close friend a few years ago. And his thing when he goes is he gets a Diet Coke, a Diet Cola or a Pepsi, whatever. And I'm like, oh, man, I feel like that'll make me live as a zombie for like an extra 10 years. I'll do it. You know what happened to me? Literally, every time I go to the movie, I've got a trigger in the back of my head, and I'm craving that diet soda. Literally from just having it once.
Wow.
That's my personal experience. Yeah. I'm assuming it's not as bad, but I probably hadn't had one of those diet sodas for 15 to 20 years before that, and now I literally think about it anytime I go to a movie theater. Now, mind you, these days no one's going anywhere in the apocalypse of Los Angeles, but I'll tell you what's interesting. I went to as you know, Robert, we live in the neighborhood that Sarah and I live in. We're very close to Little Tokyo. So there's lots of very ethnic Asian markets, Korean and Japanese markets. None of those places are cleared out. You walk in, maybe people are afraid of going to an Asian market, but I went to one and I was able to pick up some dandelion the other day, no problem. Nice. It wasn't packed with people. They were stocked with all their normal stuff, and we'll see how it plays out. It's
all those rumors about you being, you don't like ethnic diversity, right? Not true.
Well, ethnic diversity brings us such great food, doesn't it?
Exactly. I know where the gullet goes, and
it always goes that way.
Like I said, I smile, and my gastric juices just start moving when I think, Michael Boldin, we're going to get together. Oh man, are we going to eat well?
By the way, you talking the other day, Robert, about adaptogens too?
Yeah.
So I've been trying to, not that this is going to be some health advice, but I've been trying to do some adaptogenic teas most days lately. Is that also a good immune booster as well for?
Well, yeah, when you think of adaptogen, it's just that key word in there, adapt, the ability to adapt to stress. And stress can be emotional, it can be physical. And so anything that helps you deal with, I'd say normal stressors of the day, but now ramp it up times 10 or more, would be helpful. And I think that everybody, if we utilize the herbs like that, we would be much better able and capable to handle the scary stuff that's happening today that, unfortunately, as I point out, doesn't need to be so scary, because the thing they're selling us to be frightened of, the virus, they haven't even validated the test for it. And yet at the same time, I'm not totally calm about the whole thing because of people's ignorance about this. Yeah. That drives them to do scary, stupid, fearful things.
Is it crazy to think that it's like a weaponized lab thing going on?
I think you have to consider any possibility. But as I've said for so many years, and our dearly departed friend Liam Sheff, we got to hang out with, we talk about the scam of HIV tests. The tests were never real, and that made the problem from there to begin with. Everything you leap from, if you assume something's real that isn't, becomes real, in a de facto sort of way, because we are given the power to believe things, conjure things into existence. It's like we're all wizards. It's weird to consider that based on what people say and we believe, and then we operate on that belief system. But to say that they don't do weaponized testing on biologic agents, of course we know that happens. Yeah. Our own government has those secret labs. The question is, have they achieved that with a COVID-19? If so, the death rate is so low that they've failed miserably. If you think about if their agenda is.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah. But where they haven't failed is altering consciousness, altering beliefs and belief systems based on the fear of the unknown, the unseen, the virus. They just basically say, we've got a test. We need to test you. And, oh, my gosh, you came up positive. Or we say presumptive positive, but that it might as well be positive. There are two P's in there. Let's just go with it. And what does that mean? It really means nothing other than to ratchet up fear, which will suppress immunity or immune function, and that could manifest as a fever, as a cough. I mean, all of these things become real because our emotions do impact our physical bodies.
Yeah, there's it's psychosomatic, right? Is that the term for it?
Mm-hmm.
So, my thought, and I try to find the silver lining in things like this. Let's say everything is real and everything is very dangerous. Or let's say nothing is real and nothing is dangerous. Maybe my hope is that some people, rather than only trying to live paycheck to paycheck, or only having enough food to last 2 days and never forward thinking. Not to necessarily be like a prepper ready to be out in the wilderness for a couple of months or a few decades or whatever, but maybe just start being a little bit more self-aware that things aren't always going to be easy and just available at the snap of a finger. I mean, it could be from war, it could be from pestilence, it could be from an evil dictator, who knows, but supply chains can get shut down from things like this, and they can get shut down from fear. So the idea that maybe some people, even if it's a small percentage, an increased amount of people being a little bit more self-prepared, growing some foods, things like that, I think it could be overall healthy in the long run. I don't know, and maybe I'm just trying to look at it from that positive light. I've had plenty of CBD, so I'm chill today.
Do you all see why I love hanging out with Michael Boldin? That is the reason, because it's like the Monty Python song, always look on the bright side of life. And that,
well, it's easy when you live, so like all of us, we are living under the power of the largest government in the history of the world, the largest military empire in the history of the world. And I think it's very easy to see the barrel of that gun always telling us what we can and can't do, what we can eat, what we can't eat, how we can live, how we can defend ourselves or not. It's very easy to see a lot of negativity in the world. And like in my work at 10th Amendment Center, it's like we're always having to try to find that sliver of hope, the sliver of positivity.
I long for your tweets and posts that actually go, hey, look, something good happened in this day. Like, hooray, we got a little victory. Listen, we're going to take a break, our first break this hour with Michael Boldin from the 10th Amendment Center. Yes, we will talk the principles of the 10th Amendment as well, but just always a great time hanging out together and looking on the bright side. RobertScottBell.com takes you to 10thamendmentcenter.com as well. We'll be right back.
The Robert Scott Bell Show.
Check out a sweet offer that my friends at Better Way Health give. This is an immune-boosting supplement that you can't get anywhere else.
Beta-glucan activates and enhances your immune response to invaders.
These things are brilliant for modulating the immune system.
Someone has a need for help in supporting their immune system, I'm looking at the glucan product.
It's amazing, and there's been an enormous amount of research done on this.
It's the most studied immunomodulator on Earth, with over 14,000 published studies referencing beta-glucan, and it's currently being tested in roughly 100 clinical trials.
If you like your dietary supplements with validated science, there's nothing that has more behind it than the beta-1 3D glucan from Better Way Health.
Probably the most heavily researched substances that I'm aware of that modulates the immune system.
It rebuilds your immune system.
Consistency and quality are everything.
Here, you want to see my supplement drawer? Here it is. Get ready.
I was putting together my research and I tripped on this supplement called beta-glucan.
There it is. It's very small. I take beta-glucans, immune booster.
You don't have to worry that you're overstimulating the immune system. We have been just amazed.
I take like 2 a day from Better Way Health.
It's been tested against about 36 other immune-boosting products and found to be superior.
If you have an immune system or you want one, beta-1 3D glucan, that transfer point is very unique. It's going to get the results that you're looking for. I support it and I use it.
Better Way Health, I got to tell you, you can spend more time, you can spend more money, but you cannot give better service than you're going to get from those guys down there. They are truly 24 karat.
The brand you want to get is called Transfer Point Beta 1 3D Glucan, and you can get it from betterwayhealth.com. Let's spread the message about beta glucans. It's a powerful substance from nature that can help you.
Rocking the health world through the power of radio. It's the Robert Scott Bell Show.
Here we go. The Robert Scott Bell Show kicks into gear. We're well into gear, having John Rappoport on earlier and now Michael Boldin from the 10th Amendment Center. I tease Michael because he's so annoying because my mom supports the 10th Amendment Center through Patreon. and not me. I'm like, Mom, come on. Except I have to give her props. She supported me much of my life. So go for Michael and the 10th Amendment Center. It's a good cause. So y'all support the 10th Amendment Center. You can get them on Patreon. You can get us on Patreon. And, Michael, you were the one that stimulated us into doing this, and now we're going to do an Ask Me Anything tomorrow.
I'm excited. I have a question I want to give you before this episode is over.
You're going to submit it before the AMA on Monday?
I want to do it on this app. I want to do it so everyone hears it in advance, and we'll find out if you answer it or not.
Oh, you're going to give me the question. I don't have to answer it until Monday. Okay, all right.
No,
I'm
you don't
down.
have to answer. You can decide if you want to answer it.
I'm down with that. So those of you who know the Robert Scott Bell Show Monday through Friday, we're on noon to 2 Pacific. That's 3 to 5 Eastern time. And then Monday, tomorrow, which is the day before St. Paddy's Day, for those of you who listen live, we're going to do an Ask Me Anything for our Patreon supporters. You can find that at robertscottbell.com, and that'll be at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. And then we're also doing a massive giveaway. Super Don has a stash of about $400 worth of organic essential oils, and he wants to give them away to one Patreon supporter. And that might be Michael Boldin, for all I know. We're going to find out this month, as well as Dr. King's Homeopathy is giving away, and you don't have to be a Patreon supporter for this, but you have to be part of the email subscriber list at robertscottbell.com. And I want you to subscribe as well at 10thamendmentcenter.com. But we're going to be giving away, what do we call it, a regional allergy mix, homeopathic remedy. So wherever you are, if you win, you're going to get the region that you're in. So that's cool. So, Michael Boldin, 10th Amendment Center. I don't even have a question for you. I'm just
I got a thought. Something popped in my head as we were talking about the Patreon, and I think it kind of ties into what we were talking about in the previous segment. Basically, taking care of your own space, and the fact that you guys you're basically doing this with the show. Now the community is starting to grow and make the show stand on its own rather than having to rely on a third-party advertiser or something like that. And I think that in itself is very empowering. And it goes into, and it's still at very small steps, it goes into this kind of process and approach and how I look at everything from a liberty perspective based on Thomas Jefferson's advice. And he had written to, I forget, it was a reverend or something. He basically said the ground of liberty is to be gained by inches. We got to hold on to every small step that we can take, whether it's for liberty or for whatever other goal that we're working for, and recognize that a lot of people aren't even ready to hear what they need to hear to what they need to do for their own lives. And we just keep leading on forward until we can get to the end goal.
Yeah, how many people, gosh, this is my 21st year broadcasting, and there's still people that are not ready to hear certain aspects of the message because what is my role and goal? My perception of it is to bring the power to heal back to the people. Anybody, that you have that power, remind you that it's yours, and you don't need to rely on so-called experts from government or wherever. And if you want to engage in going to experts, I'm not dissuading people. I'm just letting you know, hey, man, you can do this.
There might be something else.
Yeah.
Here's Thomas Jefferson. I just pulled it up while we were talking here. A letter to the Reverend Charles Clay, January 27th, 1790. He says, the ground of liberty is to be gained by inches, that we must be contented to secure what we can get from time to time and eternally press forward for what is yet to get. It takes time to persuade men to do even what is for their own good. So we have to be persuasive, and I think that it totally flies in the face of the general overview is that some people always seek to gain the power of government so they can force people to do what they think is best for them. And that really, it only leads to a low-grade civil war, basically, every few years, where people are trying to seek control of the largest government in the history of the world. And no one wants to learn from that. If you're forcing someone to be more healthy, overall, they're going to raise their kids to reject that mentality because I think it's pretty normal to not want to be forced into one direction or another. And then you hate that. So I think lead by example, do as much as we can, and continue pushing forward for, as Jefferson said, what is yet to get.
Yeah, well, be a way shower rather than a way pusher and a way dragger.
That's awesome.
I'm
getting a T-shirt.
Yay.
That's a new Patreon T-shirt.
Oh, man, this is awesome. Michael Boldin, my guest here, this second hour of the Robert Scott Bell Show. Links are up in the show notes, as I always are. robertscottbell.com, 2 hours a day, 6 days a week. This week and every week, we launch our broadcast week on Sundays with GCN and our radio affiliates. So check it all out at GCNlive.com, as well as all the other outlets that carry the show. And you could always come to RobertScottBell.com and plug into the streams live or later. Back with more of the 10th Amendment Center and the power to say no after this.
The Robert Scott Bell Show.
Today, we live in an omnipresent cloud of charged particles emitted by electronic devices, electromagnetic fields, WLAN, and radio waves. These particles penetrate our bodies and heat the water in our body tissues. Recent scientific studies have shown that this particle flux not only heats the cells in our bodies as if we were in a microwave oven, but damages them as well. At Key Technologies, we want to protect you from the negative effects of such particles, so we have developed the Key Home Cell and other products. The Key Home Cell creates a protective field that works like a filter, intercepting any dangerous particles before they can enter your body. Here we have a partial look at the inner workings of the Key Home Cell. The Key Home Cell generates a charge exchange between the water tubes, thereby discharging free electrons and releasing them into the room. Within 24 hours, the Key Home Cell creates a torus field. The free electrons formed in the torus use their negative charge to bind to the positively charged harmful particles, thereby rendering them harmless to you. The torus field has an effective range of 16.4 feet above and below, and 24.6 feet around the device. The torus field created by the Key Home Cell is transmitted and provides you with protection through the walls of your home. Not only humans and animals are shielded from harmful radiation, but plants and food too. Whether mobile radio waves or WLAN, any particles that come within the torus field can no longer cause any harm to you or your family. The Key Home Cell provides you with all-around protection, allowing you to communicate with absolute peace of mind when using your cell phone or any other electronic devices. The Key Home Cell's free electrons are transmitted into the water through the torus field and repairing the water structure that was destroyed by radiation particles. Water regains its ideal vibrating hexagonal grid structure. The difference is easy to taste and can be proven with laboratory testing. This type of perfect hexagonal water structure is found in fresh spring and healing water and has also been seen in snowflakes. The same effect happens with our food, which also contains water. The Key Home Cell greatly reduces radiation exposure from cell phones, laptops, WLAN transmitters, mobile terminals, and other sources of radiation. The Key Home Cell drastically reduces the thermal stress on your body tissue. It is very fast and very easy. With the Key Home Cell, you will experience a new quality of well-being within your home and more life energy without any unhealthy exposure to radiation.
Rocking the health world through the power of radio. It's the Robert Scott Bell Show.
My concerns right now, as I'm talking to Michael Boldin, 10th Amendment Center here on the Robert Scott Bell Show, with the abandonment potentially, or actually, of liberty because of the fear of a virus. You know, and I talk about realities that most don't talk about, whether the virus has even been identified or isolated and that there's a test for it. Okay, if I put that aside even, the fact is, if we're giving up essential liberty, right, for security, and I would call it a false sense of security, as if the government could protect us from something unseen like that and untested, maybe, again, I'm looking at the dark side and not the light side like you, Michael. But
well, we have to acknowledge that dark. I mean, again, and I can't say it enough, and a lot of people don't think of it this way. We live under the largest government in the history of the world, and it's not even close. And so many people are still saying, well, every problem needs another centralized solution. People who work in like network infrastructure for multiple computers in an office environment, they are aware of a concern called a single point of failure. And you never want to have a single point of failure, because if one thing goes wrong with one machine, the whole system goes down. And why a lot of people don't want to apply this to government is beyond me, because when you put all of the concerns in the hands of the central government, if they screw something up because you've got an idiot politician or an idiot bureaucrat or a politically motivated one or someone who doesn't have your best interests at heart, and I think none of them really do, then when they do something wrong, it affects everybody. It affects hundreds of millions. Or when you talk about a giant military empire, it can affect billions of people around the world. You want multiple points of failure so they can compete with each other, whether it's a race to the bottom or a race to the top. But society can learn much faster when you have multiple options.
Yeah, last week, the Sacred Fire of Liberty, Jonathan Emord was on. We were talking about this COVID-19 thing, the medical edicts from government. And he had the point. It's like, we need to decentralize this. We need.
He did. I missed the episode. That's great.
Yeah. We need to, get out. The FDA should be out of this altogether. The government should be out. We need to allow innovation to happen. And if we think about many of the great, or maybe even most of the great innovations that happen, they don't come from like a centralized bureaucracy or a think tank. Let's all get everybody. They happen because someone is inspired. And, out of the blue, they come from nowhere. Where did that guy come from with this idea? And then, and this idea of centralization typically governs, like a governor on a car limiting its speed, limits the innovation and keeps things within a box that, as I say, you can have any remedy you want for the coronavirus as long as it's pharmaceutical and approved by the FDA. Really?
Yeah. I mean, if that's the way California wants to do it, or Los Angeles, then maybe people in Billings, Montana want to do it differently. Surprisingly enough, on Friday, and I see this type of thing happen once in a while when things are a little crazier. Obviously, things are way crazier than they have been lately. But the governor of New York, of all people, Andrew Cuomo, literally put out a statement where he said he thinks the federal government, quote, should decentralize this.
Yeah, I saw that too, Michael. I nearly dropped my tea.
Very unusual. And again, this leads me towards my looking for a silver lining, a glimmer of hope. If someone like Cuomo is even willing to recognize that maybe decentralization, having more options in different areas, 50 laboratories, as they call the states in some situations, is good on that, then maybe other people will start thinking that it's good on almost everything. Because I think we should decentralize on everything. Again, not necessarily even just focusing on the constitutional structure, which requires that for almost everything. The federal government is only authorized to exercise those powers delegated to it in the Constitution. There's somewhere, depending on how you count them out, 30 to 35 powers delegated to the federal government. Almost everything that they do is not authorized to them under the Constitution. Not even just with that, but the idea of, a single point of failure means one mistake screws over everybody, and that can't be good. Now, you were talking about fear, too, and that goes right back to John Adams, back when, and I don't think John Adams was one of the best founders, but there was a period in the earlier years where he really was amazing, and then he had kind of a shift once he got into power. But he said back in April of 1776 that fear is the foundation of most governments. The only change I would make is I would remove the word most, because he recognized back then, and for some reason people have still not learned this in the general public, that when people are afraid, they look to government to do stuff to save them. And then what happens is that some politicians, bureaucrats, whatever they may be, will use the precedent set through that fear to do all kinds of nasty stuff in the future. And I think a time like this is when people need to be really, really careful and think long term about what they're asking for.
Well, yeah, exactly, because as they say, be careful what you ask for, you might get it. And you might not really have thought through the consequences of asking for more centralized bureaucracy to save you from something that I argue is not even real, at least not proven to be real, right? And I know it's a difficult thing to communicate because people will want to say, Robert Scott Bell, you're telling me that nobody's gotten sick and nobody's died of whatever. No, I'm not saying that at all. Never denied that there's a reality to health and illness and disease and people die all the time. But if there was perspective and discussion, how would we ignore the thing that's the big elephant, the pharmaceutical elephant in the room? The third leading cause of death, according to even peer-reviewed medical literature, is modern pharmaceutical medicine approved by the FDA. That's not me exaggerating even slightly. If anything, it's understated. And so if we look at this and say, oh my gosh, there's 1,000 people, 2,000, 3,000 people have it, even though I dispute the test for it, and some people have died, it doesn't even come close to that which government is approving as safe and effective for the people here in America, and the death rate from that every day, much less every month and every year.
Yeah. I got nothing on that. It's just a really crazy scenario that people would go to the same people causing so many problems to resolve problems that in many situations they created in the first place. Not saying necessarily that I've got my tinfoil hat on today, and it's kind of sitting next to me. But I'm not sure who's the cause of this problem, if we can narrow that down. But I don't want to trust a handful of politicians. I mean, you could love or hate Mike Pence, but I don't think this guy is the guy to be leading the charge on dealing with whatever we're facing today.
No, I don't know of anybody in government, and I wouldn't volunteer for the job either. I think I know more than most people in terms of the medical assessments of these things and asking questions that might lead us to a different conclusion and direction in terms of strengthening immunity. Like, that's the reason I wrote that article at Casey Tracy. Said, you need to write it, that, Michael, you mentioned earlier, and it's available at robertscottbell.com. Just things that people ask me, well, what are you doing, Robert? I'm like, okay, here's what I'm doing. This is why I'm not afraid. But the idea that anybody from the government, even if they're quote-unquote qualified, is going to tell me what to do, I'm sorry, I'm not playing that game. But I think that was the spirit of the dawning of America going back, and whether it be Thomas Jefferson or other founders, they recognize that you shouldn't be looking to these centralized bureaucracies. We shouldn't have one to begin with, but we shouldn't be looking to them to solve a problem that may not even be real or exactly or even nearly as they're describing it.
Yeah, well, I have the knee-jerk reaction anytime government is involved to not trust them. And the more that you trust politicians, I think the more dangerous of a situation you are. I'm very skeptical all the time because they've lied to us over and over and over and over. We're talking, again, the largest government in the history of the world that violates our rights, whether it's our right to keep and bear arms, our right to privacy. They're violating our rights all the time. They spend so much money on warfare and killing people. These aren't people who are really interested in protecting and preserving life. They haven't been for ages.
Yeah.
They're not the people that I want to rely on. That doesn't mean that they're always going to be wrong either, right? I mean, some broken clock. Let's say they're right all the time. I don't know. This is basically when I talk about the Federal Reserve, as a quick aside here.
Yes.
I say the Federal Reserve is screwing up the economy. They're blowing up a huge bubble that all you need is 10,000 people being ill and the economy comes collapsing down. That means that they screwed up something in the first place. So some people will say, okay, well, what should the Federal Reserve be doing about the economy? And I say nothing. No, none of us are smart enough to know what the market would describe the proper interest rate is. We shouldn't be manipulating things to try to generate a certain type of outcome, because over a period of 5, 10, 15, 20 years, you're going to see much worse things happen down the line. Could that play out with what we're facing today? I don't know, but I just am very wary of trusting centralized solutions.
Well, another reason why we're good buddies. Love to hang out together, right?
Can we promote the gold back then?
Yeah, you got gold backs. Baby got gold back. How's that? Nice. A lot of states, and those are fun articles and blog posts, if you will, from the 10th Amendment Center. And Michael does, how are you doing 3 times a week still, your video presentations live?
Yeah, it's a show called Path to Liberty that I do a live video broadcast, very similar to what you do, but Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 9:30 a.m. Pacific time, and then we do archived editions, Brighteon, of course, BitChute, BitTube, another a site called Library. This is I think you guys should get on this one, too. It's actually one of the head guys who runs it is an old acquaintance / friend of mine from the Free State Project. His name's Mike Vine, LRBY. It's like an almost uncensorable platform through the use of blockchain. So
we need to let Super Don know that. We'll get on that because we're continuing to expand our platforms just to have redundancies in case some of the big boys say, no, that message you're putting
out. And they're gonna eventually, right? And so I also like the idea of being on multiple platforms just from a smart kind of message delivery approach. The more you want to be where people want to be. So the more places that we can provide the message that they're interested in getting that message, whether it's Periscope or Facebook or some of these alternative platforms, Brighteon, BitChute, BitTube, et cetera,
Twitch,
better.
Yeah.
You got so many.
Oh, my gosh. Listen, I just saw this posting from a couple of days ago. I didn't realize that you got approval from your boss to work at home. That guy is such a meanie. How did you get approval to work at home?
So, as I was tweeting about that, Sarah, my partner of many years, she's also working from home, and I'm telling her, I'm going to make a joke that I finally got approval to work from home, because she just got approval to work from home as well from GT's Kombucha, where she's been working for a while now. And so I said, I put in a request. She gets such a kick out of that. So it was kind of an inside joke for us.
I loved it. It made me laugh out loud, even though you're not supposed to laugh out loud on radio. Well, no, actually we are. I love doing that.
Years ago, when I took my first long vacation in ages, I think it was maybe 5-7 years ago, I had actually downloaded a paid time off request form from some business forum site, and I put in a request, and then I gave it a signature, took a picture of it, and said, my boss finally gave me approval to have a week off of work.
Awesome.
I mean, the beauty of working for yourself is that you can do that, but then those of us who are also very motivated to keep doing more stuff, it does.
I know. I'm not good at that.
I got to stop working for a couple of hours and sit down. And of course, it's a food motivation for me.
Well, we got to stop talking because we're up on a break. We're going to be back to wrap up the hour and the show with Michael Boldin from the 10th Amendment Center right here on the Robert Scott Bell Show after this.
Live around the world.
The Robert Scott Bell Show.
You can't protect your kids from everything. That includes germs, like a virus or a bacteria.
No. Don't touch.
Hi, Mrs. Jones. Can Tommy come out to play?
No.
No matter how hard you try, you just can't be there every minute of the day.
Look what I found.
Where did you get that?
I found it in the street.
There's a better way. Help your child build a strong immune system with Beta Kids. No, it's not a vitamin. Vitamins build strong bones and tissues, but do little for the immune system. One delicious Beta Kids gummy daily wakes up the immune system, alerting your child's defenses to perform more, better, and faster. Studies have shown kids who take Beta Kids miss fewer school days due to illness. Beta Kids is made with beta-glucan, an all-natural ingredient. It's safe, healthy, and proven. You can't protect your kids from everything, but you can help them protect themselves with Beta Kids.
He's really kind of,
disgusting.
yeah.
Good thing we give him Beta Kids.
Robert Scott Bell Show.
I want to thank John Rappoport from No More Fake News for being my guest hour one. What a great guy. What an intelligent guy. Bringing the logic in the questions everywhere. And Michael Boldin, my good friend from the 10th Amendment Center, who every time I'm with him, I just get happier. I don't know if he should be made illegal because he's like a drug, makes me happy. And I know I shouldn't be relying on other people for my happiness, but hey, it's a weakness. Michael Boldin, 10th Amendment Center. I hope you're enjoying the time.
You were already happy.
I started it that way.
I'm just icing on the cake. It's interesting. Every now and then I'll get an email from a supporter or a member or someone who's on our email newsletter, which you can subscribe for, 10thamendmentcenter.com/register. But sometimes I'll get a reply from somebody that says, I've got some really big information. It might be a little weird to you, but I was wondering where I could send that. And I'll just say, whatever you think we should read, send it over. And so the lady that had reached out to me a few days ago literally wrote back 10 minutes later. She's like, I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but there's this guy named John Rappoport.
Oh, my gosh, really?
Yeah, no, so cool. I'm like, oh, wow, you need to listen to my friend Robert Scott Bell Show. He's been interviewing John for years, so we had this really nice exchange about that, too. But I want to encourage people, even if you think it's unusual, just share stuff. Don't worry about what everyone else is going to say. There's 6-7 billion people on the face of the earth, and if a vast majority, even at least under the society we live in, all think you're not crazy, you're probably doing something wrong.
That's great. And yes, that message is resonating. I keep saying, please share your stories, share your ideas, share your questions. And this is the way, and this is what is a big concern of mine, Michael, with the shutdown, the quarantining, the not gathering in groups. And I know we can go crazy in groups, but at the same time, I want to be able to interact. I want to have an exchange of ideas, but maybe it's just more of one-on-one time. Maybe we get small groups together in such circumstances and then keep things moving forward in, I'd say, for the cause of liberty, but, freedom on all levels is what I'm all about. And it's all
my concern about I'm sorry to jump in, but I just my concern about the groups right now is, again, the fact that most people who think that taking care of themselves in an emergency is getting a 2-liter and toilet paper. So that means most of these other people aren't really taking care of their health. And you know what? The less that I'm around people who are unhealthy, at least right now, I'm okay with that. Well, that's my thought. Yeah. I mean, and it goes back to what you've been saying for probably weeks now. You're more concerned about everybody else doing dumb stuff.
Correct.
And maybe just this mentality about how people take care of themselves is part of that.
Yeah. Well, all right. We got the Ask Me Anything first. Have you ever done one of these Ask Me Anything AMAs?
I have.
You have done that? Do you get scary questions? You're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I decided to do this.
You just got to be like, I don't know. That's kind of a scary question.
I don't know what to do because tomorrow we're doing one through our patron supporters. And you had said something about you want me to warm up with a question.
Oh man, what's Super Don's favorite color?
Oh, you're going to ask Super Don a question. Oh, sure.
No, you need to guess it, and then it's like the wedding game.
You mean I need to ask him that question?
Newlywed game. No, I'm asking you.
Okay.
And if you get his favorite color right, then we know you guys have been friends for as long as you really have been.
Dude, you know what? Of all the things to ask, I'll have to ask him first, then I can answer it because I would suck at the Newlywed game because there's so many things we don't talk about that we're so show focused. But that's an interesting question. I'm going to guess blue, and we'll find out tomorrow on the Ask Me Anything if you ask that again.
Actually, I'm really excited that you're doing this, and I think people are going to be really into it. The fact that you can literally just, hey, I've been working on this, or I'm thinking about this. This is a great way to really build that strong community that you've built, but take it to the next level. It's awesome.
You are quite the instigator. You know that. Or wait, no, you're an influencer. That's it. Michael Boldin, the influencer.
Instigator.
Yeah. No, and folks, if you don't know Michael, hope you get a sense of what this guy is like because he really is what you hear here. Just a joy to be around. And the fact that he is a champion, for the 10th Amendment and liberty issues on so many levels, and finds the light and the bright in some of the darkest places. Because, listen, he sees what's really bad going on. It's not like you don't know because we've talked about these things and yet focus on liberty, focus on what you want to create. And don't live in fear. And you're a real living example, my friend, to help others to do that and better. So I thank you so much for being with me anytime we can get together.
I love you, RSB. Thank you, and same to you.
All right, that's Michael Boldin and, of course, John Rappoport and RobertScottBell.com, 10thamendmentcenter.com. Remember, the power to heal, even politically, is yours.
The Robert Scott Bell Show.